All right, we're now live on YouTube. Today is Thursday, March 31st, and this is our fortnightly community outreach meeting. Before we get into the agenda, we should go around and do some quick introductions. I like to do popcorn, where one of us will do an introduction and then randomly select someone else to introduce themselves. Keeps everyone on their toes. I'll be happy to go first. My name is Jen Lampton, joining from Oakland, California, and it's nice weather here today after a week of rain, so a few days of rain. That's it for me. How about Martin?
Martin in United Kingdom, Northeast England, and we've been having blizzards today, so that's been fun. Go to Robert.
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on the internet, coming to you from Altadena, California. We're just getting over some. I'll pass it to Sarvashri. Sarvashri?
Okay, my name is Sarvashri, and I'm in Walnut Cove, North Carolina, and I'm interested in getting more people into Backdrop and helping them to learn it. Let's see, that leaves Tim, I think.
Yeah, my name is Tim Erickson. I'm St. Paul Tim in Deerwood, Minnesota, and the movies are here outside right now, which I think last week there was one of them. I got the whole flock today, so that's good news. And otherwise, I'm just really busy and feeling overwhelmed right now. So let's go ahead and dive into our meeting. Let's just go ahead and start with the Robert, your the spam update. How goes the spam wars?
Oh, I feel like Zelensky against the Russians.
I don't hear you very well. Is your mic close by, or?
I'm sorry?
I don't hear you very well.
Oh, I'll try to talk louder or closer.
Or maybe you can turn up your mic volume or something on the.
Yeah,
Okay.
apologies.
You're usually really clear and loud.
Yeah, that's odd. Turning up my mic. See, maybe that's better.
Much better.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. Magic of settings with a mind of their own. Anyhow, on the spam topic. So a bit over a week ago, we tried some new things. We put a new honeypot field on the user registration form, which had this very nice friendly question. What's your interest in Backdrop? Took off the biography, which we had been using as sort of a spam detection. And what's been happening is that both spammers and potentially real people just put like a one-word answer in the honeypot field, faster or the CMS. So it's not a real good discriminator. But also the interesting thing is we can still detect most of the spammers because they still go in and put their spam in the biography field. And since it's no longer on the user registration form, that actually means they have to get their account and then come back and log in and then put it in the bio field. And so still, when I see the bios full of 20 URLs for escort services, I still kill them. But our honeypot field isn't really adding a whole lot of discrimination in this case. In fact, we could probably just go back to allowing the bio. So solicit maybe other things to try. I'll mention someone had suggested that we install Antibot that was used very well. And when I went to install it, I found it's already installed and has been active since 2018. So presumably that's been protecting us from pure robotic submissions, and what we're getting are click workers. So what other steps are we could take to create barriers for spammers that don't create barriers for real people? This solicit input on. It seems pretty tough.
Do you have CAPTCHA on?
No, there's no CAPTCHA on the user registration form. But if it's click workers, that's probably, which it seems to be, that's probably not much of a barrier anyhow.
I don't know that we can stop click workers, right? That by sort of definition, if there are humans that are trying to get around our system, they will. We can only make it easier to detect them, maybe, but
Can we put something up on the screen that says, if you spam us, you'll get deleted before anything gets seen anyway. It's not worth your time, sort of, you know.
Yeah, I thought about that, and but it is unfriendly.
You say, do you say it on the screen that this is moderated? If you're not actually involved in this, you'll be deleted immediately, or something like that, that tells people that, you know, we're moderating this this entry, so only legitimate people should be here, in some way to say that. That's friendly.
Yeah, you know, rather than saying you will be deleted, it might be enough just to say this is moderated by this is human moderated, and you know, and let the click workers draw their own inference. Certainly the deletion hasn't you know, stopped people from using you know, from submitting, even though we delete them all the time. Something else that we started doing was tracking IP addresses, and the ones that have been deleted, those IP addresses have never repeated. So potentially, you know, they're moving around, they're using Tor or something that they're not coming from the same IP, they're masking their IP address. So blocking IP addresses probably is not going to make a big dent if we were to start that.
Have there been other solutions proposed on the net? Because, I mean, everybody has this problem.
My gut reaction is that there is no solution. Like what you do is you fight it the best you can, but the idea, other than full moderation, which we've also talked about, right, which is just moderating who can get on. And I think, you know, I'm against that unless it were a real crisis. And I think other people have expressed that as well, that we really want to make it easy. Well, I don't know. I mean, one of the things that we could do is step back and look at a little bit what and why we're providing this login for, and talk more about that. That might be helpful. But in general, if we're trying to get people to sign up on our site, you want to keep the effort, the resistance as little as possible. I'm personally skeptical that any kind of message we put up is going to voluntarily stop them. I think people they're posting anywhere that they physically can, and there's no message that will stop them because they don't care. So I don't think that's going to help either. You know, maybe a CAPTCHA helps, maybe.
One thing I experimented with, and I know it was just basically a proof of concept rather than a fleshed out thing, was using rules to say, does this word exist in there. Or you could do it either way. You could say, does it contain this? Or you could say, does it not contain this? And all it was doing then, I did a simple proof of concept whereby if they didn't mention backdrop or in the thing, then instead of creating it sent them a message, but blocked the account, but sent them a message saying, thank you for your registration. This will be reviewed by a moderator in due time. So the person getting that isn't going to know that they're getting any special treatment, because it doesn't tell them that they're being treated as spam. It just says that they might think that that's the normal process. So that could just make it a bit easier, in that if we can either identify things that spammers don't say or things that they often do say, just put it in a rule. It's not going to pick up everything, but it might say pick up 70% and just block them before anyone sees them.
I think the problem you're going to run into is that we can't do that perfectly right. So we're either going to allow some spam through, or we're going to block some legitimate people from getting in. And I think that's inevitable, right? Because I just can't imagine what the perfect rule would be. And I'm not sure, it isn't that we have a flood of spam right now. So if we don't want to block some legitimate people, I think, is our objective, which means that, for me, I would always err on the side of letting the spammers get through and just deal with them. And I'm not, the question is, how bad is the spam problem? And, is making it a little bit less even that big of a, is that helpful? My understanding is that it's a couple of people a day. Is that correct? Or where are we at right now with how big is it?
It's between 5 to 20 per day.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's a lot. So you could maybe take the most egregious spams, look for keywords in those like escort services or something, and pull those out immediately with a rule. I think that might cut back on some of it.
That would still catch only a small fraction. And maybe I should start posting the spammer lists in that issue to give some data before I kill them and make them go away. But it's really diverse. It's like gardening. One is gardening service, and I mean, I joke about the escort service in the online casinos, but it's electrician and
real estate,
just all over the place.
Yeah.
There's usually a decent fraction of them are in Vietnamese or what looks like an Indian language. And I haven't bothered to go translate them, but usually it's, things like best repair facilities. So I think it would be hard to develop a set of rules that captures even a significant percentage of them. We do already have the restrict abuse of words module that's been on it for a while. And even that, as Tim discovered, catches
what's the word?
Posts. I think it was assignment was the one.
Assignment. Oh, right, because they're telling you they're going to write your essays for you, right?
Oh,
so yeah.
Maybe. It didn't occur to me at the time, but it was like, why is this word blocking me from posting? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think this is, so right now we're talking about backdrop.org, right? Our two primary sites where we've had to deal with this and backdrop.org. In the forum, where we actually seem to, I haven't seen hardly any spam posts lately. I'm sure there are spam accounts. And I don't know if anybody's actually monitoring the spam accounts on the forum, but like I haven't seen any posts come through. It used to be that almost every day we'd have one or two. And I feel like in the last month or so, actually, we can see that in Zulip. In our Zulip history, we have the forum. Oh, there was one today.
I have an idea. Do we have a rate limiter on the registration form that like would only allow you to register once per day?
No.
I don't think so, but how would we detect someone who's moving IP addresses for each account?
Yeah, so it depends on how, right? Like if they're using a CDN and like one browser session, it would be like, oh, sorry, we can, you know, this browser's only allowed to create one site a day. But if they're really using like sophisticated emulator software where every time they fire up a new browser window, it's in a VM on a CDN, like there are going to be very good services that do this link worker stuff that we're not going to catch because they know all of the secrets and they're going to get around them. But I just didn't know if we had already tried that, because it could be just with the browser who's creating like 15 accounts, just switching the CDN location, and that might help. I don't know. Might not. They might not do that anymore. But.
Well, if they know that it's not going to work, if we tell them that this is moderated, whether we do moderate it fully or not, we can post on this is fully moderated on that form, then that would discourage them probably from.
Well, that's another thing too, is that I don't think the workers make any decisions. I think they're just given, here's your list of websites to use, here's your list of email addresses, here's the list of copy we want you to post, go. And they're just paid by like how many posts they put up. So we'd have to do something that would be troublesome enough that it would make it up to the people who are making decisions about like which websites do we post all of this garbage onto. And I don't know if just showing a message to the person who's paying form is going to do any good. It would need to be something like, they're not actually seeing those posts show up, right? Because Robert's deleting them. They eventually be like, well, we're not getting paid by the client to post this stuff because it's never showing up. So then that might sort of trickle down to the person who's actually doing the work and be like, okay, we're going to take this site off of our list because it's not getting us anywhere. And I don't know how to like achieve that threshold. Like, I don't know at what point we get removed from that list. It's sort of the magic unknown quantity here.
Maybe we should have a pop-up for those people who are trying to do the wrong things and say, the internet police are now tracking you.
Okay. Well, I don't know where to go with this conversation. Yeah. I think it should. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if getting a single sign-on will help us at least reduce the ports of entry. Because right now we've got multiple sites that we have to combat spam on. So that would be one step that would help us. I'm looking right now. I don't know if, Robert, are you watching just backdrop.org or are you also watching the forum?
Just backdrop.org.
Okay. I know in the past, Olaf has helped with backdrop.org. And for example, there was a spam post yesterday that's gone. So somebody deleted it. So, and I sometimes do that, but I know other people do as well. Actually, yeah, it looks like Olaf has been, I think it's usually Olaf or I that catch the spam on the forum and delete it. There aren't any posts. And when I look at accounts, it looks like we've been deleting spam accounts too, because there are not many new accounts. There are definitely some here that are spam. We probably should delete, but I don't know if they're posed anywhere. Anyways, my only point there is there's more than one port of entry, right? We're fighting this in two different places, and single sign-on might help with that a little bit, but it's still not going to go away.
Yeah.
Well, what's the next step? Just to put something up on the site that's saying sign-ins are fully moderated
but they're not.
That won't run anybody who wants to be there, but it might discourage people who know that.
I don't think it'll discourage anyone
Yeah,
who's
I don't
a click worker, and it might discourage someone who's a real person if they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be here. So I think it's likely to have more negative consequences than benefits.
Yeah.
I think the next steps possibly. I mean, I know, Robert, when it was offered a couple of weeks ago, you were wanting to sort of concentrate on it and just stick with it yourself while you kind of tried out a number of things. But it could be if we just accept that we're going to just have to carry on blocking. Is it something that should be shared?
Yeah.
Have a couple of people who sort of share the load, maybe.
Right.
Another thought too is if we made it so that there was less things that those spammers could do, and you'd know more about this than anyone else, probably Robert. Like right now, there's a number of content types that people can create without approval. If we made it so the only page they got access to without approval was the profile page, is that still too tempting?
I think on b.org, the only spammy content I've ever seen is on the profile page.
Okay, and that doesn't help.
As opposed to the forum where they're actually making posts. But and you might say, what does it matter to if someone has a spammy profile, except there's places where there's listings, and then like people advertising their services, and then those get buried by the spammer profiles. I think that was.
I frequently search for web pages that mention backdrop.org, and sometimes I get referred back to spam accounts on backdrop.org. And I find that, so my point is that I sometimes find spam accounts through Google inadvertently. And so that's one of the dangers of having them out there, is that people will find them and they're clearly spam, and then it reflects poorly on us. Plus, I think it encourages more spammers.
So one thing we could do, or two things, I'm thinking of things that might help us, is we could either make it so that as a registered user, you can create your account and you get your profile and you can edit it, but that profile itself doesn't get rendered until that account gets approved, so that we're not preventing people from creating accounts, but we're just preventing the display of their data. And we could print some message on the page that's like, this account is currently under moderation. We could also decide like what causes that message to appear. Like if there are specific things that we're like, we know this person is going to be good if they put in like 4 paragraphs about like how much they love the backdrop user interface or something. I don't know what we can detect, but if we had something we knew we could validate they were good, we wouldn't need a human intervention. And then we could just have all of those accounts queued somewhere where like once a week we could have someone go through and review them. So we wouldn't necessarily need to watch them every day, but that might at least like sort of the burden on our moderators, where we're not preventing the people from doing anything with their accounts, we're just preventing them from publishing anything that would make it advantageous for them to get access to that account before they're approved. And then I had another idea. What was it? I don't remember, but something along those lines, where having all of the moderation not on the account creation itself, but on the display. The other idea was putting a no index tag on their profile page until that account gets approved. So that way, those Google search results that like Tim is stumbling across, those pages won't be indexed until after that account's approved. So if we added a no index tag and a piece of information that prevented their profile content from showing up, then even if they tried to put a link in their username or like Nike, whatever, that content still wouldn't get indexed on Google. So those might be enough of deterrence that there's now no value to having a backdrop account if you're not approved. And then maybe over time, it might decrease the attractiveness of using backdropcms.org for that.
I have to correct something I said earlier in this. That because of the way the addresses, there actually are quite a few repeat IP addresses in among the spammers when I sorted them in order. So IP address blocking of spammers would be effective.
It would.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not perfect, but
Right, right.
it will cut.
But it would
It will
help.
definitely cut down. So I'd like to go ahead and try that.
Okay. So if we're going to block by IP address, we should probably not do that at the application level. Like we wouldn't want to do it from like within Backdrop, but we could do it on the server. Nate has a solution that he's using this on another one. Let's ask him about it in the dev meeting and see what he wants to do. Probably at the Nginx level or something. I don't know.
Okay. Just for my technical edification, because I'm only familiar with the Backdrop level IP blocking modules, what's better about doing it at a different
So
level?
if you can block the traffic before it gets to the application, then there's no strain on your application, whatever. And if you're trying to do it in the application, then it already like bootstraps the page and is using the application to do the blocking. But if you know you don't want like any traffic from that IP address, you can just avoid all of that traffic. So this is particularly important under like a super high, volume site, because you wouldn't want the traffic you don't want affecting the traffic you do want. For the volume that we're dealing with, it's probably not that bad. But if I don't know. Like, I don't know what kind of like view requests we're getting from those IP addresses, but right now we know we're getting bad like account creation content. Those are like form submissions and data. But if those people couldn't even see backdropcms.org, that might also help be our benefit. Like if you're a spam creating company and you're like, let me check out what websites are out there, there's probably a whole team of people who do that as opposed to the people who create the accounts. And if they can't even see the site, then that would keep the list too. And so, yeah, we'd be losing all of the view traffic as the, read traffic as well as write traffic. So, but I don't know. We'll ask Nate. He's got something he was doing for webform.com. It's similar, right? That's a great spam attracting service. You want to get your phishing forms or whatever. So we'll see if he wants to do that on backdropcms.org too.
Are these people using legitimate host, or are they creating their own host and doing this? I mean, can you report them to the hosting service?
We don't know where they're coming from. I mean, that is a good question. Like, what are these IP addresses they're using? I would imagine if they're sophisticated enough to use like unique browsers and unique IP addresses in order to create all of this stuff, that they probably are rotating through like Amazon cloud servers or like Linodes or just, things that you can fire up for a month and then turn off. And then now that IP address is no longer the one that you're in trouble from. So it's tough because it's hard for companies like Amazon to stay on top of like which one of these people that's paying me money do I like want to turn away if they're only doing it for short amounts of time for each one. So yeah, I mean, there's a chance we could figure it out and report it to Amazon, but I'm not sure it would do us any good. It would be like a good deed for the world, but
If you're blocking IP addresses and the IP addresses are changing because they're taking down a server and putting another one up, are you then going to be blocking good people?
It's possible. I mean, there's a reason the Backdrop is like blocked in Russia, right? It's because at some point the server that we're on now was used for something malicious and we ended up on a bunch of block lists. Yeah, so
That does happen. I mean, this fighting spam is a huge, or in treating spam is a huge industry and it's a huge problem and everybody's dealing with it. So, like just reporting them to, you can't keep up with that. There are these services, and I think we're using them where we do mark, we flag spam accounts, and that supposedly goes onto a list that sort of tracks spam accounts, right? I think we do some of that already, don't we, Robert? Or are we not doing that now? I know we have software installed to do that.
Yeah, I think I don't recall if we're reporting We definitely report our content to Akismet.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Akismet blocks a little bit of incoming stuff. I don't think we're reporting IP addresses to anyone.
Okay. Well, I mean, I do think Ken's earlier point about blocking, moderating content, like I would not want to do that on the forum because that would be too overwhelming and people want to post right away. We could make the argument that there's nothing you need to do on backdrop.org that requires immediate, right? It's urgent, right? So you create your account, and it could be that we do moderate that, but we need to make sure then that we do it, because I have run into scenarios where I found content on one of our sites that's been sitting there for 6 months waiting to be moderated because we didn't have a process in place. So we just want to avoid that situation. And on backdrop.org, maybe that really does make sense. And, you know, I just remembered we were going to bring this up in context with CiviCRM, right? This becomes, that's probably maybe why you're so concerned about it, Robert, is because you're thinking about it. As we implement CiviCRM, the implications of letting spam accounts get through are greater. And it might be that I do reverse my position on moderating even account creation. Like maybe accounts have to be approved. You know, maybe we will get to that point on backdrop.org if there's no urgency to it. If there's nothing that people need to do right away. The thing is that doesn't reduce our workload, because now instead of removing spam, we're approving accounts. So really what it does is it switches the work we're doing rather than removing.
That's why I was thinking if there was a way that we could sort of allow ourselves to queue that process of account review without preventing that person from doing anything. So like if you normally put it on like account creation, that person can't log in until somebody comes and verifies their account. But if instead we're like, you can log in, you can create content, you can do whatever, just everything remains unpublished until you're reviewed, then we're not preventing the real people from doing the things they actually need to do. We're just saying, we're going to review this like next Thursday or something. And I feel like that sort of buys us a little more flexibility in terms of when we need to do the work. So no one's waiting for us.
I wrote an article recently for opensource.com, and I created a profile, and but if I go to my profile, it's empty, and it's a Drupal site, by the way, a Drupal 7 site, and I suspect that what they're doing is exactly what you're talking about, Jen, is that I can log into the site, but my profile, now it's there. So I was able to log in. I had to be able to log in to create an article, right? But my article wasn't published. And even after my article was published, my profile still wasn't visible, even to me. And I think that what they do is they just queue that up. So it's really just exactly what you're describing, is that I could create an account without any moderation. I could edit things. I could edit my profile. I could go back multiple times and edit my profile. But nobody saw my profile until a human approved it, and now it's there. So
yeah,
that might be a good strategy. What do you think, Robert?
Sounds worth a try.
Again, it isn't saving us work. It's it removes the urgency, right? It's like if we don't check spam for a few days, nothing is getting posted. The accounts will still get created.
But it stops the people from getting paid.
No.
Because they can't prove that they have done anything.
Well, I'm not sure how that all works, but I wouldn't necessarily assume that they have to prove anything.
If the business model is, here's a stream of sites, fill those in, go on to the next, you get paid when you finish clicking and filling it in.
That's my suspicion. People are deleting, they're hoping that if they post 100 spam posts, and 10 or 20 get through, that it's still profitable. And they know that a lot of this, what they're doing is getting deleted. They just don't care. It's volume.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
anyways.
the kind of delayed response sounds good. Just figuring out how to implement that will take a little work.
It doesn't solve the problem of work, of having to manage this. It just sort of changes the nature of it and makes it less likely that stuff gets through.
It does also stop other people from being affected by, lousy, bad posts.
Yeah.
Yes, and we have occasionally found, like on our people who provide services. In fact, if we went through, from time to time, we've had some escort services that we're advertising on as backdrop service providers. Some of them had been there for months, and we just didn't notice them. And it will eliminate the possibility of that happening, which is a good thing. That might be happening less lately. I know some people have been through and cleaned out a lot of those accounts, but that's the kind of thing we want to avoid. Okay. Well, we spent most of the meeting on this. Hopefully it's been helpful.
Yeah, I'll throw some notes into the issue queue of what we talked about, and then maybe come up with a next action to take. And at the next meeting, we'll ask Nate about blocking. Right now, I think blocking known bad spammers should have a discernible effect. It won't catch everything because there's a lot of solo spams, but it'll catch some of them.
Yeah.
I guess an easy way just to do that would be to have to only include ones in a view that have a particular role, and by the nature of you approving them, you give them a role. That'd probably be the simplest one to do that without installing too much other modules. If you have a role on the account.
Sure. Yeah, I've done something like that before. I think you're saying to implement that only approved people can post, right? Yeah. That's one way to do that, is to just, exactly. You have to have a certain, an approved. We could just create a rule called approved, or a role called approved, and you have to be approved in order to post or create content. And then we just have to figure out how to assign that role. That's one solution. I don't know if it's the best one or not, but it's a good one. I've used it.
Yeah, for B.org, it's just the profile postings. You need to come up with a criteria. So maybe there's a role that's equivalent to you can add to your profile, but then there's a question of how do we decide who gets that role, and there's additional manual action then to assign people that role.
Actually, this is simpler than that, isn't it? Because it's publishing. We can allow people to create content but not publish. So
But user accounts don't have a published status.
No, but is there a view that presents those?
No, it's just the profile page. I mean, there are lots of views that show user accounts, but the profile page itself doesn't have a published unpublished status.
Okay.
That's the problem. But it sounds like, Tim, whatever module or whatever website you were looking at recently, the Drupal site has a module that controls that with something. Right. It might be fun to check the source code and see if we can figure out how they're doing that. Or ask them, I guess.
We could also just ping Amy June and see if she could ask.
Yeah.
It might be fun to check the source code. Yeah, that's true. It could be or I mean, if we were creating the site new, you could create. If you use something like profile 2, then the profile becomes a content type, and then you would have that control over, right? And maybe that's what they're doing, is they're using like profile 2 or whatever it was in Drupal 7. Hey, we should wrap up.
Yeah.
Anything else? Well, I obviously didn't have anything urgent at the beginning of the meeting. tell you what, Sarvashri, your question, I mean, about documentation and training. As a community, I don't know that anything's happened since we've last talked about that. I have been working on my backdrop class, and I have been, I can update you later, Sarvashri. I've been starting to write for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've done, well, I'll send you a link in a minute. In my Learn Backdrop site, I've been starting to document the creation of that farmer's market site. So this is like a step-by-step walkthrough of creating a sample site. Some of you heard Sarvashri and I talk about that before. So I've been making a little progress on that on my own. Unfortunately, I've been not as much as I'd like. So, but I'll send you a link in a few minutes to show you what I've done.
Okay.
I'll put it in Zulip if anybody wants to look at it. Okay.
Okay. So I won't stay for the next meeting.
Let's end this meeting.